Step into my office with me here and let's talk some finances. Welcome everybody to my office. We have been doing a bit of a project, so let's go through some finances to see what goes into developing a racetrack like this. So we will start from the very beginning, the easiest part to go over, and that was the purchase of the property. So 178 acres, that was $2.25 million. Actually, before we weren't gonna put this out there, but a lot of news sites have already published this, so obviously that is financed over a long amount of time. That is the first expense that goes into, I guess, buying the property to revitalize this racetrack. So the first thing to go over here, which a lot of people keep on asking, is how at 29 years old that I could go and buy a former NASCAR track and Laura's property. The answer is doing your mom. She pays quite well. Okay, but no, the real reason, I was a NASCAR driver for many years. I saved a lot of that money, took out a Lars loan to buy a NASCAR charter, aka a franchise, in 2020. Sold that at the end of 2023. I am not legally allowed to disclose the amount that it was sold for, but you can look that up. Anywho, that at the time was the largest charter sale in NASCAR history, and I was a 50% owner of that. That led us here to today, where I have invested a ton of that money with our financial advisor, Dom. Shout out Dom, Raymond James. We love you guys. We've been living off of that for quite a bit. Got a couple other little income sources that I wreck with my own racing, so I destroy any income that I have off of that. And so now we're trying to actually go make some money by building a racetrack, which I know sounds stupid, but we do actually have a business plan around this to try and make this into a profitable business in the future. Quick little background though on the business plan that I just mentioned. So the Mill Irons were the ones who owned the property. Now they own just about everything in Mansfield, from the salvage yards to the waste management. I mean, all kinds of business. You see Mill Iron all over it. So they in absolutely no way had to sell this land. However, we worked with Carl Mill Iron, the son of Grant Mill Iron, who originally purchased the property, and Carl was extremely great to work with. But in order to do this, we needed to submit to him a vision of what this track was going to be. And so I think he understood that if you just operate a local racing track in 2025, 2026, that it just doesn't work. The finances aren't there. You need to have those FOMO type plans at a racetrack for events. So whether that be racing, concerts, drifting events, festivals, whatever that might be, you've got to build this out to be more than just a racetrack. And funny enough, when we were kind of celebrating the fact that we completed the purchase, Jordan, my wife, was like, hey, we just bought a racetrack. And I kept saying, no, we bought a venue, an entertainment venue that happens to have a racetrack. And so we have to keep that mindset, because when we lose track of that, when I let my racing competitor purist mode get back in the way of the business side of me, that's where the money does not come in anymore. So luckily, I've got a lot of years underneath my belt for sponsor management, VIP hospitality management, and then of course being a fan before ever buying a track, to make sure that we keep the fan side good. And one thing I do want to say right away is we are going to dive into all the numbers and how incredibly expensive this is. It is not a light task at all to bring a property like this back to life. But we realize that race fans, unless you're an F1 fan, are not forking out hundreds of dollars or even, $50, $70, $80 to go see a race every single weekend. So I want to address the fact that we've had a lot of people say, oh, well, you're now priced this for normal people. No, our goal is to where the average blue collar working class American can go here and enjoy a Friday night, Saturday night, whatever that might be. That's why we brought in our general manager, Brad McCown, because he worked with people like that for so long, of knowing how much each person would spend and still continue to come back to the track. So we're trying to keep all those things in mind. Obviously, different events will have different pricing tiers, but for the most part, we want to make this to where people can roll in, have a good time, drink a few beers, and still have their paycheck left over on Friday night. With that being said, let's get into the rebuild costs. All right, well, first thing is when you buy a property like this, you need equipment. So we had to buy a lot of equipment. We're still buying equipment. We're talking an excavator. You could rent some in there, which we will do some rentals, but by the time things are said and done, you're probably going to spend about $50,000 on an excavator. Our grader, dirt track, we have to have a grader. Also, we have all kinds of access roads around the property, $25,000. A Bobcat, we've been renting one for a little bit right now, but obviously a fantastic utility vehicle to use around the property while we are getting things back up and going. But decent Bobcat to get that for something that can last for a long time. If you want to buy one used, about 25 grand puts you in a pretty good spot right there. Dump truck, we have rented a lot of dump trucks already. We just bought a dump truck, but somewhere around the $20,000 range, you can find a pretty decent dump truck, something that's a dual axle truck to where we can move dirt and rocks around and not have a tough situation with having to bring in trucks all the time. Because if you saw in part one of our video, going from the complete jungle of a racetrack to now what it is, being pretty well cleared off to where we can bring in clay, we are at a point to where we have got, oh gosh, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 dump truck loads of stuff already. Going past that, water truck. So we had to get a large water truck, a 6,000 gallon water truck, because we are a half-mile dirt track. So that was about $40,000 on there. We had to buy a tractor as well. We have lots of grounds to keep up with, 180 acres worth on there. Now, our folks over at Ashland Tractor hooked us up with a great deal on there, so we got some 0% interest rates and all kinds of cool stuff over there. But between the tractor, the attachments we got, and the mower deck was about $95,000. Oh, not put in here as well right now are Packer cars, which we will have to get. If you've seen, we've had really stupid cars in our videos. We've talked about the cost of that, but so far that's been like $1,300 total, maybe $2,000 with that little Civic truck we got. We got a monster truck for kids' rides and things to do with that for the future, so that was about $30,000. We had a cool SWAT truck that came with some equipment. We didn't pay for that one. There's still probably another $20,000 to $30,000 in equipment between trucks. One of my trucks I had as a kid, it's a 2002 Duramax that'll come to the property, so I've had that forever. So that'll just come down there. I mean, you have little things like zero-turn mowers and bigger deck mowers and weed whackers and all this stuff. I mean, I can just basically say another $50K just in random equipment that we need to have at the track. All right, so let's get into the entire rebuild cost. I have put this out there pretty widely across social media. The entire rebuild cost, including some of those equipment costs there, is going to be $2.5 million. And that's if we do well on here. So here's where all these costs come from. The largest one, so the catch fence, we have to completely redo the entire catch fence because the old one was sold off at the track. That is about $365,000 to put in a catch fence that is not just your local short track catch fence that's going to fall apart. We do want to be able to host big events if we have a chance to, so still that's a pretty large cost for that. As you have seen in our videos, we don't have a wall from the middle of the back straightaway all the way to the middle of the front straightaway. There have been so many quotes around this wall. And the hard part about this is this wall is 14 inches thick. In some sections with the footers, it's 8 feet tall, and some it's 4 feet tall. So we have to kind of create our own marker of what we're going to do. So this is just talking about if we were to do a cement repour of it. We've gotten quotes for about $600,000. We've gotten some for $150,000, some for about $200,000. So we can say pretty comfortably at the $200,000 mark to go repour that wall. I would like to have a long conversation with the person who knocked out that wall, because that was certainly a large cost. Because those walls came out, we don't even know the cost yet of the drainage. So there is a well sitting in the middle of turns 3 and 4. We have to get the electrical turned back on for the pumps down there. But we don't even know exactly what the cost is going to be to put in all the French drains behind where the walls are going to sit, where they need to go down for culverts and things like that in turns 3 and 4, where the big lakes are. I mean, you can probably say another $50,000-ish in cost just for putting in some drainage systems there. Probably more, to be honest. Another big section in here is going to be lighting. Lighting's not cheap, but lighting is one of the single most important things you can do at your venue. So when it comes to the lighting portion of this, we're kind of in an interesting position where we are trying to reuse pieces that we have. Our plan is actually to go into our parking lot where we have these giant 70-foot Musco poles we are looking to bring them out of the ground, bring them over to the racetrack surface around the back of the track there, and try to retrofit some LED lights to those current heads of the poles there. This is going to save us a lot of money from not having to bring in brand new poles. To bring in used poles for a 90-foot pole is typically about $5,000. To do a new pole, somewhere around $12,000. But then we bought a batch of LED lights that came from another track build. So we have a guy from Trick My Track, his name's Charles, who basically tears down and rebuilds tracks like currently he's doing the St. Louis Track Worldwide Technology Raceway, Talladega when they tore down some stands, Rockingham, Charlotte, etc. So they're able to get these batch amounts of brand new or lightly used materials in order for us to save money. So we were able to get about, I think it was 140 or so lights for about $70K. So a retail price of about $1,300 per head on there, we're getting for $300 or $400 for brand new unboxed lights. We will go ahead and say about $210,000 to $250,000 on lights by the time you have the labor all the way done. Okay, so let's go to the buildings of the racetrack themselves. We'll just start kind of one by one as we have with our contractors to go through of what it takes to bring our racetrack back. The first building as you walk into the racetrack is the ticket booth. Luckily the ticket booth was in great shape. We turned on the AC, it fired right up. Really we just got to do some rubber baseboards going around the bottom floor there, get some POS systems going in for doing some tickets. We got some carpet tile at our local Lowe's to put in our office area, but really not a whole lot. The roof was in great shape. I would say we're probably in that building for between $5,000 to $10,000. I mean, we really lucked out with that building there. Okay, one of our biggest projects. This one is messy. If you saw our YouTube video, the first bathroom, the very first bathroom you come in and see through the gates we'll call it our northern bathroom there. So the northern bathroom was completely stripped out. There's no fixtures, there's no partitions, there's no sinks. Plumbing was also completely destroyed, and it's a freaking disaster. So we're just trying to put that back to how it was. We are still working on our final quotes from it, but just to bring that building back to life is about $130,000. I mean, we're talking 53 fixtures in there. We're talking entire plumbing things to get back up and going inside of it, and we're not doing anything new. This is just to get it back to where it was for simple repairs on there. The roof needs a couple little patch ups and stuff for it too. Unless we can work a deal with somebody on the fixtures themselves, they're American standard fixtures that are wall mounted, so you can come in and clean them very easily. We're looking at, between $100,000 and $150,000 just in that one bathroom alone. Skip down to the southern bathroom. This is my favorite bathroom because it doesn't need much. It needs about $15,000 worth of work just for general cosmetic stuff, a little bit of paint, a little bit of touch up. Ultimately, that bathroom is in fantastic shape. So we really lucked out on that one. 2 bathrooms together, we should be able to do them both around $150,000. The one I hate the most, the concession stand. This apocalyptic scene is so expensive because they decided to auction off a lot of the kitchen equipment that was in there. So we have to buy a new grill, new pizza oven. We did actually have a lot of things that were left over there for warmers and fryers and things like that, but we have to get a brand new grill. Luckily, our fire suppression systems that were on top of the vent hood there are still good for another couple of years, so we can use that until 2029, I believe it was. So that's a big savings, with that whole area being so damage from the roof there. We've first off got to do the roof repair. We have to redo all the insulation in there. Probably got a bit of drywall work through there. Definitely have to repaint everything. The fridge and freezer seem to be working okay, which is fairly lucky. But yeah, it's going to be between equipment and repairs on there. I don't even have an exact figure yet because we haven't even gotten into the pricing out of that building yet because it is so just tore up. We're going to be somewhere in the $50,000 range before we really start getting all of our equipment quotes in there too. And I know this is a price overview and breakdown, but you gotta remember, we are only a month in. We've done a lot of work. We've done about $100,000 worth of repairs already on the track, not counting payroll and what people have been doing out there for us, but just what we've done so far. But sometimes we don't know what things cost until we really get knee-deep into there and figure out what we need to make it work, what we need to do for code compliance, all kinds of stuff like that. All right, and then as we go upstairs for the building, first off, we had to repair the grandstand. So putting back the steel and aluminum pieces and the rails back where they were. We had to bring in a little bit of material, but that was about $25,000 to do that, including pressure washing the grandstands off of there. I mean, giant difference. That thing looks so much better than it used to. But these suites upstairs, we are basically budgeting about $100,000 for repairing these suites, and that was already to the point where we've stripped all the carpet out of there, we've gotten the cabinets knocked out of there, so at this point we have to come in, repaint things, get our flooring choices picked out, our fixtures picked out, probably a couple TVs. My brother Morgan did an awesome job getting the PA systems working back into the grandstand side, and he'll have that going inside of the suites here soon as well. Just a lot of random stuff in there. I had originally budgeted $200,000, but our HVAC units upstairs, 12 of the 16 fired up right away and worked great. They blew cold. We still have to do duct work through there. We have to replace all the dry sprinkler heads for the fire systems there. It's going to take a while. Lots of just kind of general labor going through design work, but roughly $100,000. I think that should be a pretty safe number for what we need for these suites. Let's talk about our sprinkler room. This was the one that was the complete water park when we came into the facility at first. We got extremely lucky. We thought all of the panels and stuff were going to be completely shot through there. We got a lot of them back up and going. We are currently working on our fire system, our panel there. If we have to replace that, anywhere between $15,000, $20,000. We don't exactly know yet. We've gotten some quotes out for our jockey pumps there. We got some of our main water lines going through there that need some work. It's very rusty as well, so try to figure out if we want to treat that, what we want to do with it. We've had some people reach out and talk to us about doing some cost savings measures there. We will definitely shout those people out when the time comes and when we do those repair videos. $100,000 worth of repairs in there. We're thinking now it's probably going to be closer to 50 or 60. So between that and the elevator servicing, the elevator will cost about $6,000 to get back up and running. But between that and the fire, you've got to have those for your ADA seating, for your safety, for everything. Without those two items, nothing works. But let's just talk about knocking the walls out themselves. So this probably was $30,000 to knock out those walls. This was kind of done in the beginning. I don't have batch pricing or exact pricing on this yet, as this kind of goes into an allowance for a deal we did with the contractor for how this gets done. But between knocking out the walls, doing the infield wall and some of the outer wall knockouts there, we're probably around $30,000 to $50,000 in there, and then add in about another $10,000 for random general labor for that as well. There's some stuff in here like we don't know exactly, when we put hookups in the infield, like what kind of electrical lines we need to run. We're still evaluating if we have to repave our burnout pad area, which there are areas that we have to. So some of this stuff, man, it can be a 30 grand patch, it could be $200,000. Same thing for the access road. We were quoted around $150,000 to level it and get new stone and stuff out there as well. We're going to take our grader out there and go do it ourselves, and it'll cost about $500 in diesel to do it. There's just some things that move around so much on these budget items, like I said, as we get into them more and more. The tech shed, we had to do a lot of the garage door work on there. We're still getting quotes back on that. I would assume somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 to get all the garage doors replaced, repaired, and moving. It is also hot as hell inside that. So we're getting those two big ass fans, the company big ass fans. They have those giant ones, so we're going to have those installed in our tech shed as well. So for not only our team members who work there, but also for fans if they need a spot to cool down at the track. There is a full second concession stand there as well. We're not going to rebuild that to be a functioning concession stand, but we will have it for, if you want to go buy a pop or get some chips or something like that if you're around the area. But we are going to use that for a lot of storage for our other concession stand for bigger events. General things around the property, we're doing a lot of LED light conversions. For the building side of that, that's about $30,000 for replacing the main lights that are everywhere, from those fluorescent lights over to LEDs. Roofing repairs in general, we're just estimating $50,000 at this point. Another big cost, clay and track resurfacing. We still have to find out exactly what our clay cost is going to be. So we know we're gonna have to bring in about 5 to 8 inches of clay, so several thousand pounds of that. Then it just kind of depends on where is that. Are we able to go dig some test areas on site on our property and sift those and screen them and try to find out if we can use that? Are we importing them from elsewhere? So the trucking cost of that really is a giant variable. So right now we put a blank number of $200,000 to resurface the entire property. I promise you, no matter where we get this from, when it is done, it'll be one of the nicest tracks in the country. Now let's talk about some of the new things we're putting into the property. So one of the coolest things we're doing is, for a fan experience and hangout, is a beer garden. As far as the beer garden goes and things like this, what's cool about it is not only does it significantly increase the fan experience and things to do, but it also gives equity back into our property, because we're investing back into our property, we're investing back into our fans, and that just helps everything get better from a brand perspective, from a loyalty perspective, and ultimately just from the property value perspective. But with that being said, the beer garden, we're looking anywhere between $100,000 to $150,000 to get that done. We've placed the order for the steel and the aluminum to get that done, but we still have to get these specific layouts completed on that side. We also have to bring in some AstroTurf around there, because we have to have it raised above the old cement piers that were left in the old grandstand. So we want to make sure everything looks fantastic around that. On the other side of our main grandstands, we are extending our grandstands by about 2,000 seats, also doing a 16-foot wide party deck that goes about 180 feet long. So that is going to be about $450,000. Grandstands are not cheap. The original grandstands for the track were called an I-beam grandstand. This will be an angle frame grandstand coming in. To do an I-beam grandstand, that's what you see at most of your NFL stadiums, your higher end tracks like Daytona. It would have been in the $2 to $4 million range to do this, back with Southern Bleacher, the original builders of the track, to do that again in 2026. And I say 2026 because it would have taken that long. So not only would we have been $2.25 million for the property and $2.5 million for upgrades, but then we would have spent another $2 million on the grandstand work. I've been very fortunate in my life to make the money that I have, but I'm not in the business of losing all my money, and that would have done that. Obviously, there's some things around this property that are kind of unique to the Mansfield Speedway itself, such as the generator room. I'll be honest, we have not even gotten into those massive Detroit engines yet to figure out what is going on with those generators. We'll have to get a servicing company out there, check out what the deal is. As we mentioned in the YouTube video, the cool thing is that we can run the property solely off of those generators themselves. But for now, we are just off of the typical Spectrum, Ohio Edison deal going on there. It's something we definitely want to explore, but we just don't know the cost on that. We know they're extremely expensive to get up and running, but it would be a cost savings as we go. But then, there's other things around the track, like just upgrading the lighting into the 21st century. A lot of the stuff was built in 2002. So, just looking at a lot of these things that have just been around for 20, 25 years that just, even if they don't need fixed, just updated. We've talked a lot about, in our videos, bringing fan experience and immersion into, the future here, really, for what a short track can be. And to me, that kind of starts with the lights and sound and the replay boards and stuff you have the track. I will just say I've learned a lot from getting quotes on these replay boards. So roughly, to do a 60 by 40, which is comparable to Eldora, to do a scoreboard the size of that is about $500,000, and that's for a 10 millimeter pitch. There's some that are 16, but that's about the going rate for a 10 mil. If you go with a Daktronics or something more expensive, it's going to be higher. So I was thinking, okay, cool, we're going to be right around that. That fits in our budget. Well, you got to add on top of that, you have to build a giant frame for these with catwalks. You got to extend them 12, 15 feet into the air so everybody can see them. And then, oh, by the way, you have to put speakers around the entire track. So we are still working on our exact quotes from our lighting, from our electronic and AV people to check out what this is going to be. But what I can tell you is by the time the video board and the sound system is done, in order to provide the best racing entertainment there, from replay boards to in-race games, things like that on the TV for fans, to have an incredible board for concerts and other sporting events there or other festivals, and the sound for those events too, we would be putting in about $1 million into that infrastructure of sound and AV and the picture itself. This stuff is just so expensive, but you've got to have it in a modern facility for what we are trying to create. As far as other expenses that we have not even talked about yet, of course, there's lawyers, fees on here. There's a lot of drafting of agreements, but then there's also your payroll. So right now we have 3 full-time people on payroll. So for payroll, for our full-time help and part-time help that we've been bringing in to get this place back up and going outside of just our contractor work for this part-time help, we will spend around about $100,000 in payroll. It just kind of depends on how the rest of this year goes. What really moves that number and changes that number a lot is if you start to have events, you bring in part-time help for your parking, your tickets, your concessions, things like that. So right now we're running fairly lean off of 3 people. So that number's lower, but if we do get the chance to run an event later on this year, like the Holiday Light Show and things like that, that number significantly goes up. So payroll is always one of the larger costs there, of course, for any business. All right, everybody, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening to me ramble and going down the finances of this track. I know this is a little bit tough to listen to all the way through because there's so many numbers, and also we are still learning what our numbers are going to end up being, that's cut and dry all the way through. On top of all this, we have sponsors coming in that go back onto the revenue side. So as we go through with this build, check back in 3-6 months from now when we have our final numbers, because we will do an entire build through of exactly what our line items were, every single cost that went through, and share a screen with you too to show you exactly what it was, because I want to share this with all you guys to just show you how much your support really does mean, because every t-shirt you buy, every ticket you buy, every share in Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, whatever, really does go into helping us get funds back into here so we can keep this place open for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So again, this is a giant undertaking. This truly is around a $5 million project all in. So it's a big undertaking, but we have had a lot of big support too. So thank you guys for that. And we look forward to entertaining you with some of our stupid content, from our track construction content and from our finances content. Let me know if there's anything else you want to learn or see, because we will go step by step through these videos as new exciting things get installed instead of just playing cleanup like we are right now.